Hello, Tom. It's a real pleasure to speak with you today. As an artist and researcher, your work often navigates those intriguing, sometimes shadowy intersections between the visible and the unseen. We're here to delve into two specific areas of your expertise: the relationship between art and the occult, and perhaps a topic that might surprise some, the connection between alcohol and the occult. To start, could you tell us a bit about what initially drew you to explore these subjects, particularly how the occult began to inform your artistic practice and research?
It's absolutely my pleasure. Thanks for having me. It wasn't really a sudden dramatic awakening. It was more like a slow, insistent pull over many years. As an artist, I always felt a deep fascination with what lies beneath the surface of everyday reality. The seen world felt incomplete somehow. I started by just exploring symbolism in art history, mythology, alchemy, esoteric traditions, and quickly realized that these weren't just decorative elements, they were pathways, attempts to communicate deeper truths or experiences that defy conventional language. The occult for me became less about spooky rituals and more about the study of hidden knowledge, the pursuit of understanding those unseen forces that shape our existence. It felt like art in its purest form was always trying to do the same thing.
That's a really insightful way to put it, pathways. So when you say it started informing your artistic practice, what did that look like initially? Were you consciously adopting specific occult symbols, or was it a more intuitive absorption into your creative process?
Initially, it was definitely more intuitive. I found myself drawn to certain textures, certain ways of layering, of obscuring and revealing, that echoed the very nature of hidden knowledge, the idea that there's more to something than meets the eye. Over time, as my research deepened, I started consciously incorporating specific methodologies, not necessarily copying symbols directly, but understanding their underlying principles. For instance, the alchemical process of transformation, the idea of turning lead into gold, isn't just about metals, it's a metaphor for spiritual or psychological transformation. I began to approach my materials, my canvases, with that same mindset. How can I push this medium to transform, to reveal something new, something that wasn't immediately apparent?
So you're not just depicting the occult, you're almost engaging in an occult process through your art. That's a powerful distinction. Could you give us an example of how a specific occult concept might manifest in one of your pieces, or perhaps a series of works?
Absolutely. Consider, for example, the concept of the veil in esoteric thought, the idea that there's a thin barrier between our everyday perception and a deeper, more profound reality. Many of my early works explored this visually. I used translucent materials, layers of paint that partially obscured images beneath, sometimes even deliberately smudging or blurring outlines. The idea was to create a visual metaphor for that veil, to suggest that what you're seeing isn't the whole picture, that there's something just beyond reach, perhaps hinting at forms, energies, or even entities that exist on a different vibrational plane. It wasn't about showing ghosts directly, but evoking the feeling of their potential presence, or the presence of these unseen forces.
That sounds incredibly evocative. It reminds me a bit of the surrealists, actually, and their fascination with dreams and the subconscious. Is there a historical lineage of artists you feel particularly connected to in this exploration of the occult?
Oh, absolutely. The Surrealists are a massive influence, no doubt. Artists like Leonora Carrington, Remedios Varo, and of course even earlier someone like Hilma af Klint, whose abstract works were directly informed by her spiritual and theosophical studies. She was arguably painting occult or spiritual abstraction before Kandinsky. Then you have symbolists like Gustave Moreau, Odilon Redon, even William Blake, who wove spiritual and mystical themes deeply into their work. They understood that art could be a bridge, a way to access or convey truths that rational language couldn't quite grasp. They weren't just painting pretty pictures, they were attempting to conjure, to evoke, to even initiate viewers into different ways of seeing and understanding the world. That lineage is incredibly rich and often overlooked by mainstream art history, which tends to shy away from anything too woo-woo, you know?
Right, the woo-woo factor. It's a shame because there's so much depth there. Now, this brings us to the second, perhaps more surprising intersection you explore: alcohol and the occult. When people hear occult, they might think of spells or rituals, but alcohol typically isn't the first thing that comes to mind. How did you stumble upon that connection, and what does that relationship entail?
That's a great question, and it's definitely the more unexpected angle for many. My interest in this really grew out of researching historical rituals and altered states of consciousness. It became clear that throughout history, in almost every culture, fermented beverages, be it wine, beer, mead, or stronger spirits, have played a significant role in religious ceremonies, mystical experiences, and yes, even occult practices. It wasn't just about getting drunk, it was about facilitating a shift in perception, lowering the conscious mind's guard to allow for different kinds of experiences, visions, or communications. Think about the Dionysian mysteries in ancient Greece, for instance, or the use of wine in many sacred rites. It's seen as a transformative substance, a spirit that can connect one to the divine or the chthonic realms.
So it's about the altered state, not just the substance itself. The idea of using alcohol as a tool for intentional spiritual exploration rather than just recreation.
Exactly. It's a very fine line, of course, and one that requires immense caution and understanding. The occult isn't about escapism, it's about intentional engagement. The fermentation process itself is fascinating from an alchemical perspective. Transformation, decay, purification, grapes becoming wine, grain becoming beer. It's a living, breathing process, mirroring the transformation that occultists often seek within themselves. Many traditional magical systems, especially those with roots in folk magic or shamanism, incorporate specific alcoholic beverages for libations, offerings, or as a vehicle for trance induction. It's about setting an intention, understanding the properties of the spirit you're inviting, and using it with respect and purpose, not just to numb yourself.
That's a crucial distinction. Are there specific historical examples or traditions that particularly highlight this connection? Any groups or practices that stand out in your research?
Certainly. You can look at the Vodou traditions, for example, where specific rums and other spirits are used as offerings to the lower, facilitating possession and communication, or even certain ceremonial magic traditions where wine is consecrated and used in rituals drawing on ancient symbolism of blood and life force. Even the humble toast in many cultures has roots in ancient libation practices, offering a portion to the gods or spirits before partaking yourself. It's a subtle acknowledgement of unseen presences. My research often delves into the etymology too. The word spirit itself applies to alcohol and to non-physical entities, which I find incredibly telling. Language holds these echoes of ancient understanding.
That's a brilliant point about the word spirit. It truly shows how deeply ingrained these ideas are, even in our everyday vocabulary. So, how do these two areas, art and alcohol in the context of the occult, interact or inform each other in your work? Do you create art under the influence, for instance, or is it more about the intellectual understanding informing your creative approach?
That's a very important question, and I want to be clear here. I absolutely do not create art under the influence in a way that would impair judgment or critical faculties. The aim is not to get drunk and hope for inspiration. Instead, it's about the intellectual understanding of these altered states, the historical context of their use, and the symbolism surrounding them. For me, it's about seeing fermentation as an alchemical process, understanding the ritualistic power of a libation, and then expressing that understanding conceptually in my art. So I might create a piece that visually evokes the transformative energy of fermentation, or a sculpture that holds the symbolic weight of an offering vessel. It's about translating those esoteric principles into a visual language rather than relying on the substance itself for creative output.
That makes perfect sense. It's about the profound understanding and intentionality behind it. So for someone who might be just scratching the surface of these topics, what's a good starting point? How can one approach these fascinating, often misunderstood subjects with curiosity and respect?
That's a fantastic question, Peter. My advice would be to approach it with an open mind, but a critical one. Don't believe everything you read, but be open to exploring different perspectives. Start with history and mythology, read about ancient mystery schools, look into the roots of symbolism in art, explore the Hermetic tradition, or even just delve into the rich folklore of different cultures. You'll find occult themes woven into the fabric of human history. For art, look beyond the obvious, see how artists throughout time have tried to express the ineffable. And for the alcohol connection, again, it's about history and anthropology. Understand its ritualistic past rather than just its modern recreational use. Most importantly, differentiate between genuine esoteric study, which often requires discipline and inner work, and sensationalized or superficial portrayals. It's a journey of self-discovery as much as it is a study of hidden knowledge.
That's excellent advice. It really encourages a thoughtful and respectful engagement with these complex subjects. Tom, your insights today have been absolutely captivating, peeling back layers of the visible to reveal the rich, sometimes surprising tapestry of the unseen. It's been a true education, and your work sounds incredibly profound.
Thank you, Peter. It's been a genuine pleasure to share some of these thoughts and explorations with you and your audience. It's a journey that never truly ends, and I'm always learning, always discovering new connections. That's the beauty of it, really, the endless mystery.
And that's a perfect note to end on. Tom, thank you again for being with us today. To our listeners, if you're curious to see more of Tom's work, we'll link to his portfolio in the show notes. We hope this conversation has sparked your own curiosity about the hidden dimensions of art, history, and consciousness. Until next time, keep exploring.